Okay. All right, we're recording now. Okay, so Enya, whenever you're ready, go ahead, stand up and unload on these fools. All right.
Okay. I should do like the whole intro that we just talked about, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. I am on the affirmative side that the United States should intervene with full military support in Syria. My first contention is that the United States intervening with full military support would benefit the citizens of Syria and other dictator nations by proving that the United States will not tolerate oppression and chemical warfare. My first piece of evidence is that in August of 2012, President Barack Obama addressed Syria's claim to own several forms of chemical warfare by stating that there would be enormous consequences if they were to start using them. During this interview, he also identified chemical warfare as a red line for the United States, which the country would not tolerate. My second piece of evidence is that in August of 2013, only a year after, the Syrian government attacked the suburbs of Damascus with sarin gas, killing approximately 1,429 civilians, and 426 of these were children. My third piece of evidence is, as of now, 16 different countries, including Syria, Japan, France, Russia, and Canada, have biological weapon programs in which they develop chemicals to use in the case of warfare. This evidence proves that the United States needs to show its complete military support in order to prove that the aforementioned enormous consequences were not just a bluff. Showing full support of the underprepared Syrian rebels would prove to other dictators that the United States would not hesitate to challenge them if they were to suppress their citizens in similar ways. Intervening in Syria in such a way would have an enormous impact on civilians in dictator nations all around the world, not just in Syria, because of the message that it would send to other dictators. For all these reasons, I affirm that the United States should intervene with full military support in Syria.
Excellent. Okay. All right. Let's go with Daniel next.
Wait a minute. Okay, so I am on the negative side of the topic of the U.S. should use full military force in Syria. My first contention is that America intervening with full military force will harm the welfare of Syria. My first piece of evidence says that annual quality of life growth rate averages 68% higher than the growth rate before military intervention. My second piece of evidence is that there is no credible, cohesive political body that could assume transitory authority and prevent a descent to chaos. Syria's opposition is divided and has little influence on the events on the ground. This evidence proves my claim because it shows how before military intervention, the quality of life of a country was 68% higher than after intervention, and there would be no one else to replace President Assad of Syria. The impact of my contention is that by not intervening with full military force, the quality of life would be 68% higher and would not lead to another civil war on positions of power, both of which would help Syrians more than intervention. For all these reasons, I support that America should not intervene with full military force in Syria.
Awesome, thank you. All right, let's go with Raymond.
Give me a second, Chip. I'm on the affirmative side of whether or not the U.S. should intervene with full military force in Syria. My first contention is that the U.S. should intervene with military force in Syria, as it would benefit the entire world to bring peace there. My first piece of evidence is that the Assad regime has launched multiple illegal chemical attacks, outlawed by numerous agreements, such as how in 2013, a legal sarin gas attack was launched, killing hundreds of people. My second piece of evidence is that there have been over somewhere around 384,000 to 586,000 deaths in Syria. My third piece of evidence is that in Syria contains over 2.5 billion barrels of oil that can be traded away to other countries if free from the constant war it faces. My claim is that this evidence proves my claim. Since by continuing to put military force in Syria, we can make up to $45 million per month. We can prevent illegal chemical weapon attacks, and we can obtain a new oil trading partner. Impact: the U.S. should intervene with military force in Syria, as it could prevent thousands of deaths. We could prevent chemical attacks, and we can obtain a new oil trading partner. For all these reasons, I believe that the U.S. should intervene with full military force in Syria.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, let's go, Justin.
I'm on the negative side of the topic. The U.S. should intervene with full force in Syria. My first contention is that the U.S. intervening in Syria will escalate the situation and make matters worse. My first piece of evidence is the U.S. has intervened before in Libya and Iraq, and it only made things worse rather than solving the problem. This proves my claim because even though we can assist the rebels in Syria, it would probably only, there's a high chance of only escalating the situation and creating more violence rather than solving anything. And we can support them non-militarily and non-violently by financially aiding the rebels or taking in refugees from the war. My second piece of evidence is that Russia is also involved in Syria, and they support President Bashar al-Assad, which opposing the U.S. This proves my claim because intervening could not only cause more problems in Syria, but we could also create conflicts with Russia, whom we already have bad relations with. This could result not getting involved militarily in Syria could end up saving lives and de-escalating the situation. And while going in with full military force could actually spark conflict with Russia and create more death and violence. Thank you.
How are you supposed to end it?
Oh yeah. For all these reasons, the U.S. should not go in with full military force in Syria.
All right, excellent. Thank you. Let's go with Summer.
Can I stay seated so I can read the?
Sure. Okay.
I'm Summer, and I'm on the affirmative side that the U.S. should intervene with full military force in Syria. The U.S. intervening with full military force in Syria is beneficial for global welfare. My first piece of evidence is that the estimate of the total number of deaths in the Syrian civil war by opposition activist groups vary between 384,000 and about 586,000 as of March 2020. This war has been going on for a very long time, and by adding on more time to it, more people will die. My second piece of evidence is that to achieve beneficial objectives will require a comprehensive military and diplomatic strategy backed by the U.S. forces on the ground and inclusive leadership that leverages the weight of our allies in the region and around the world. To accompany that is that by March 23rd, 2019, the day of ISIL's territory collapse in Syria, a U.S.-led group of allies in Syria and partnering forces had liberated nearly 10,000 square meters from the Islamic State. As a result, 7.7 million people no longer lived under ISIL's caliphate. This evidence proves my claim because in order to stop the war and save lives, we must implement full military force because it benefits human lives. Despite the fact that it may seem very counterintuitive, by ending this war as quickly as we can, less lives will be lost. Another thing impacted by the Syrian civil war is that we can we can also benefit the environment by implementing full military force. Jordan is in a serious situation with the annual per capita water supply was around 140 cubic meters, and now it is less than 100 cubic meters. This is all due to the Syrian civil war, and 100 cubic meters is only 10% of the UN's definition of water poverty, which is anything below 1,000 cubic meters per person per year. The refugees coming out of Syria and into Jordan is not only making Syria a more unstable place, but also the countries around it. My second piece of evidence is that there is increasing evidence that barrel bombs filled with chlorine gas have been used, killing and wounding civilians in several cities and villages. Aside from the fact that these weapons are meant to kill civilians, the metals in the munition don't break down, meaning they will be clinging to the soil of Syrian ruins. By allowing this process to drag on even longer, we are allowing more damage to be attained to the environment that's already deteriorating. This evidence proves my claim because if we can stop this war, our already damaged environment can take a break and benefit from it. The impact of my contention is that the environment has suffered a lot already from this war, and if we keep letting it drag out, more will happen, including in Syria and Jordan, when only having 10% of the UN's water poverty. The world cannot continue to go on like this. In conclusion, this is why the U.S. should implement the military things.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay. Let's go with Anna. I'm gonna mute you, Chris. Or if you can mute yourself. All right, Anna. All right, go for it.
I'm Anna. I'm on the affirmative side of the topic of if the United States should intervene with full military force in Syria. My first contention is that intervening with full military force in Syria is beneficial to the U.S. economy. My first evidence is that the President expects the United States to benefit by millions of dollars per month from Syria's oil revenues while U.S. troops remain in the country, estimating $45 million per month. My second evidence is that Syria is the only significant crude oil producing country in the Eastern Mediterranean region. According to the Oil and Gas Journal, Syria had 2,500,000,000 barrels worth of oil. Evidence 3. On the 19th of December in 2018, President Donald Trump announced that he ordered the pullout of all 2,000 to 2,500 U.S. troops operating in Syria. A decision to keep soldiers there was presented as an effort to deny ISIS renewed access to revenue-producing oil facilities. My warrant is that this evidence proves my point because by using military forces to defend the petroleum in Syria will help the U.S. profit and therefore benefit its economy. The impact of my contention is that the U.S. will profit almost $550 million per year if they keep their military troops in Syria. For all these reasons, I believe that the U.S. should intervene with full military forces in Syria. Thank you.
Cool, excellent, thank you. That was fantastic. All right, Thomas.
I am on the negative side of whether the U.S. should or should not intervene in Syria with full military force. First, my first contention is that full U.S. military intervention within Syria would harm the general environment and population of Syria, as well as damaging the economy and making it a basis for the United States to consolidate its power. Historically, the doctrine of manifest destiny that the United States has adapted in terms of dealing with foreign affairs has caused problems historically with the U.S. installing puppet governments in order to maintain the U.S.'s influence within the region. My first piece of evidence is shown through the existence of what would be considered the banana republics, where the U.S. sponsored large food corporations that were serving in Central and South America, and replaced these with essentially what would be considered as powerful U.S. supported businessmen, which these people used to take advantage and essentially hired a military force to essentially strong arm the governments within the region, allowing for a system of corporate violence to essentially take hold of the entire region, of which the region has only recovered in the recent years. My second piece of evidence is shown through the westward expansion period during United States history, of which the United States used essentially guns and currency to drive others out of the region for what they believe to be a cause of which they are destined to fulfill for themselves. As such, the United States will use this opportunity to consolidate influence and power in the region and make it into a United States power base, which would severely impact the demographic of people within the region, as shown historically. My warrant is that because of these historical examples, as well as the U.S. adopting this doctrine of manifest destiny, what would happen is that the United States may appoint someone to govern the region that is supportive of the United States, but would be detrimental to the general populace as a whole. As such, the United States intervening with full military force may end up with the destabilizing force in the region, causing potentially more wars, as well as illegal attacks from different proto-states and organizations. To conclude, this negates the argument for the United States should intervene with full military force in Syria.
All right then. Okay. Let's see. Who's left? Who else has to go? Anyone else? Okay, Chris. So, Chris, what we're doing is our final presentation. You did something for Syria, right? Yeah. Okay. Wait. Okay. Yeah. 1 second. Let's do William first, and then we'll go to you, Chris. Okay. All right, William, go for it. William, you can just do civil disobedience. William?
Yeah, I'm still here.
So if you could, all right.
Hello, my name is William, and I am on the affirmative on the argument that civil disobedience is morally justified. My first contention is that civil disobedience is morally justified because it benefits human rights. My first piece of evidence is that examples of civil disobedience throughout history has commonly led to gaining human rights, such as Martin Luther King Jr.'s protests to treating Blacks unfairly. My second piece of evidence is that people are commonly discriminated due to their race and how civilization thinks of them, and they commonly need to, quote unquote,
overthrow a government that acts against their common interests and/or threatens the safety of the people without cause. The right of revolution. My warrant is that this evidence proves my claim because the gain of human rights and the need to change the government benefits the human rights of all people. In conclusion, this proves my case that civil disobedience is morally justified.
All right, excellent. And then Chris, so what we're doing right now is our final presentations. So just choose whatever side you feel like you did the best on. All right. After neg, just read one contention, not both. All right. This took a lot longer than I thought it would. All right. Okay.
And all that stuff.
Huh?
Do I stand up and everything?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. Oh, I have to? Okay. Okay.
We just see your tongue.
Okay, okay, should I sit down then?
Wait, no, can you not lift the camera up higher? Yeah.
That better?
Yeah,
Alright.
Better.
Okay. So my claim is that the United States should intervene with full military force in Sierra. Now the evidence is that from many different videos and other times, it has been leaked that the protection of civilians and that a bunch of civilians in Sierra have been disregarded, and they have also been killed or injured in ways through either chemical weapons or other different ways by the Sierran government. This shows that protection of civilians is a key priority for Amnesty internationally, and since the United States and France, other countries have decided to fight back and retaliate against Sierra for their treatment to their citizens. And this happens because protesters who do not like the Syrian government, that they started protesting and to try to overthrow the government. The government retaliated by killing the people, and that led to the conflict, which led to the uncertainty in Sierra. By February 2019, some 13 million people were estimated to be in need of humanitarian assistance, including 5.2 million in desperate need. Basically, and my warrant is this evidence, and this evidence proves my claim because innocent civilians are dying due to the Syrian government's complete disregard for their citizens. And this can be prevented if the U.S. intervened with full military force and makes the Syrian government practice international humanitarian law. The impact of my contention is that the Syrian government will abide by the international humanitarian law, and it will greatly lessen the civilian casualties caused by the Syrian government. Is that it?
Cool. All right. I'm going to stop recording here. Does anyone else have to go? Everyone gave their final speech? All right.